TGIF, yes, it is Friday. The Warriors made an adjustment last night. We've got an even series. Klay Thompson gets hot. Milwaukee fires their coach after just a 2-year period since he won the NBA championship. Yeah, you sit there and you think about that. 2 years ago, they're champs. Last year, they made the playoffs. This year, they go out in the first round, and Mike Budenholzer is removed by ownership in Milwaukee. You know what that tells me? It tells me that the star of that team, Giannis, really didn't care, did not come to his defense, because it's quick, the release of a coach that won a title, but it's a players' league. If Giannis wanted Mike Budenholzer to stay as coach, Budenholzer would be coach. There's no doubt about that. There was an interesting, the segment they always do, the game that's taken over the country, whatever Greg Gaston likes to say, when he does those things and you got to say yes or no, the top 10, or, yeah, you got to go 10 in a row, right? 10 in a row. Taylor Jenkins is amongst the longest tenured coaches in the NBA. That's amazing to me. I got every one of those right, by the way, and I don't normally get his 10 in a row correct. But if you think about the short tenures, you know. Look, Pop is the longest running coach. Spoelstra is number 2. I have no idea after that who would be the longest tenured coach. Like he mentioned Quinn Snyder. Well, people may be thinking about when he was at Utah, but he just took over Atlanta, so that was an easy one. Tyrone Lue, same thing. Mike Brown, same thing. All of them have been fired recently. I don't know if Budenholzer will be a head coach. I suspect he will be in another year or two. Somebody will take a chance. But his job could have been saved. They mentioned, and I don't know if this will be the case, but because Taylor Jenkins has had great regular seasons and 2 now first-round exits, if that were to happen next year, or they did not make the playoffs, would that mean the end of Taylor Jenkins? And I would tell you this. Does Ja like him? If Ja wants him to stay, yes. If Ja doesn't care, thinks he could get more results from a different coach, Taylor Jenkins would be gone. It's on the players. Giannis, I'm not saying Giannis fired Mike Budenholzer. I'm saying Giannis could have saved Mike Budenholzer. It's a players' league. Look, all you got to do is look at Steve Kerr, who's now amongst the longest tenured. Mark Jackson was the coach there, and they did well. Steph Curry didn't like Mark Jackson. Steve Kerr took over, and look what's happened. Go back to Michael Jordan. Doug Collins, who became a great analyst, was their coach. Michael Jordan didn't love Doug Collins. He claimed later that really wasn't the case. He could have saved him. They bring in Phil Jackson, and the rest is history. This is not a new occurrence. This has been the way it has been pretty much all through the NBA. At least once it became a bigger, more lucrative league and players were making the kind of money they are making now, they got the clout. And that's what happened to Mike Budenholzer yesterday. I talked a little bit about the dangers of all this proliferation of gambling, and are we going to see some ramifications from what happened with Alabama and LSU when the Ohio State gambling regulation stopped all betting on the Alabama-LSU game a week ago? Now Alabama's coach, whose name is Brad Bohannon, got fired. So here's the allegation. And when Alabama released him, there was no verbiage about this. But according to an ESPN.com report, there was a gambler in the Great American Ballpark, the Cincinnati Reds ballpark in Ohio. And he was on the phone, allegedly, with Brad Bohannon, talking to him about the game before he placed his bets. If that's true, Alabama, the SEC, and the NCAA had no choice but to let Brad Bohannon go. Guy's been there since 2017, took him to the College World Series, I think, last year. And now he's history, and they had to. This was interesting to me. I've heard now, because this has become a story, and I would think a grave concern for anybody who bets on sports, which is almost everybody in this day and age, that a game could be fixed with a couple of players or a manager. Apparently, the starting pitcher for one of the teams was not able to go that day. Maybe they were checking on that. Maybe it was the Alabama starting pitcher, because that would make the most sense. But there are 30 states that now allow sports betting. It used to be in only Nevada, right? They were the only ones that, even when other casinos came up, there was not sports betting allowed in those states. There was casino betting allowed, not sports betting. Now 30 states allow it. Apparently, until the College World Series, there is a minute amount of betting on the regular season, which is part of the reason why this one was easy to spot. I don't know how much more we'll get to know about this. I'm assuming enough reporters are going to be on this that it will not go away. But Brad Bohannon fired from Alabama for that particular allegation. And we'll see how it all plays out. Bohannon's not talking. And the SEC and Sankey and Byrne, the AD at Alabama, are all speaking in very broad strokes without anything really specific, just saying, he violated university rules. So maybe we'll get more as this thing comes to light. It'll be interesting to see if Bohannon has anything to say about it. We're just getting underway. We got an interesting show coming up here. Andy Schiffman's going to join us in the second segment, as he always does. We'll talk about NBA and what happened last night in the game with Golden State and the Philadelphia-Boston series, Phoenix-Denver, New York, and Miami. 3 of the 4 series now tied at 1-1. We'll talk about Embiid and Budenholzer and a lot about the Grizz. That comes your way with our agent from Priority Sports in Chicago. That would be Andy Schiffman. And then, did you know there is a Kentucky big man in the transfer portal who entered yesterday? His name is Lance Ware, 6'9", big, played at Kentucky, entered the portal yesterday. He played for Andy Borman in AAU hoops. So maybe that's where the big is coming, although he's more power forward. But so is DeAndre Williams, right? I mean, they really played a smaller ball, big man concept last year, and Williams could really run the floor. So maybe this will be the answer for that. We'll talk with our friend Brian Dacus about all that in our final segment of the show. I'm sitting in the Family Leisure Studios. Don't forget the Vacation at Home sale as it winds down. We're still early in May, but this thing's been hot and heavy with the best prices in town on pools and a free liner upgrade during the sale. Spas are $1,000 off in stock, and they got a lot to choose from. Patio furniture, big stock, big inventory, no doubt about that. Play gyms for under $2,000 with special financing available. And if you mention that we brought you this particular message, you get half off the installation. That's from our friends at Family Leisure. Our title sponsors, Homer Skelton Hyundai, and Genesis. Not everybody can sell both, but they do at the corner of Lamar, Highway 78, and the first exit in Mississippi Craft Road. Turn left there, go see Chris True and all the gang, and I'm going to urge you to go see a guy named Vinny Gerard. He's over the Genesis cars, and they got this deal right now to entice you. Buy a G70 finance with Genesis, they'll pay you $1,000. It's a $1,000 rebate, but basically they're paying you to do business with them at Homer Skelton Hyundai. So last night, maybe this was a blessing in disguise. Looney is not 100%. Steve Kerr decides to not put him in the starting lineup. Instead, he'll go with JaMychal Green. And all of a sudden, they're playing better. They're faster. They're able to attack inside more. They were actually even on the boards on free throws, I should say, with L.A., and they out-rebounded them by 15, 55-40. So they were able to operate inside. And then outside, well, the Splash Brothers did their thing. Klay Thompson in particular at 30 had 8 threes in the game. Curry had 20, 12 assists in this particular game. And now, they had 21 threes last night. They had 21 threes in the first game. Those are the most threes made by any team in the first 2 games of a playoff series in NBA history. 42 threes in those 2 games were even at 1-1. You know, Charles Barkley has been harping, and a lot of people have, but Barkley's sort of been leading the chorus in talking about Anthony Davis. And it's true, and he'll go, okay. I think this was also said by our own Johnny Radio, who doesn't like Anthony Davis. I think Anthony Davis is a heck of a player when he plays. But here's the point. He plays a good game, and then he doesn't play a good game. I don't think it's 1-1 like in order. But there are games where Anthony Davis just looks like he's not in it. He's not engaged. I don't want to say he's disassociated, but he just doesn't have the intensity. Something changes. Maybe he misses his first couple of shots and gets discouraged. Maybe he's not as mentally tough as he should be. The guy did win a national championship in college. It's the only one Calipari's won at Kentucky was with him. So I know he's got some of that toughness. They did win an NBA championship too. So he's one of those 2 guys. He's one of the guys that has 2 championships. Not many of those either. One in college and one in the pros. But he went from having, what was his line? He had,
30 and 23.
30 and 23 to last night where he had 11 and 7. 11 points, 7 rebounds. Like he couldn't miss a shot in the first game. Couldn't make a shot last night. He went from 4 blocks to 3. Now, LeBron was hot in the first half. He ended up with 23.7 rebounds. But this is amazing to me. After 3 quarters, when basically they shut everything down, do you know what the plus-minus of LeBron James was? Come on, J-Mo.
I have no idea.
You're Mr. Analytics. Come on. Give me a guess.
Minus 20.
Minus 27. Minus 27. How does that happen?
Yeah, it's tough.
Well, he didn't have a good second half either.
No, nobody on their team did. It is peculiar with Anthony Davis getting 1 good game, 1 bad game. It's literally been back and forth the entire playoffs. I can't explain it for the Grizzlies series. But for this series, I think it mirrors kind of what we saw with the Sixers and Celtics, is that putting a smaller guy on these bigs. So like last night was Draymond guarding Anthony Davis. 2 nights ago was Grant Williams guarding a majority of the time Joel Embiid. And for some reason, smaller guys, maybe they're allowed to be more physical, but they seem to do a better job of pushing these big guys out of the paint. And so I can't speak to why he's back and forth in the Grizzlies series, but I know from game 1 to game 2, for me, they were able to get Anthony Davis out of the paint, and he just wasn't willing to shoot those shots because he still shot 50% for the game. He just wasn't taking the same amount of shots he was taking in game 1.
Let me ask you this. Why in the world are they allowing schematically him to sit outside then? If you've got Draymond Green on you.
Well, he couldn't. Like, he was pushing him out of the paint. He couldn't stay in there.
He's got to get tougher. You can't tell me he can't go toe-to-toe with Draymond Green. I think he doesn't like it. But I think he's got to do it.
Could be.
And I think that will be one of the adjustments they make. I mean, it's the same thing. If Boston keeps Grant Williams, and I love Grant Williams. Grant Williams was one of those guys I admired in college. I never thought he had a chance to be a really good pro. He has absolutely proved me totally wrong, and I'm happy for that. But you cannot tell me that if they're going to depend on him to guard Embiid on a regular basis and be successful, they're nuts. I know it worked once. I can't imagine that's going to work on a regular basis.
I would agree. However, there's a lot of – I totally agree with you, first of all. I think that the size should always dictate an offense. But I think it might just go back to they're allowed to be more physical, and so you can put your full weight on a bigger guy without ramifications that you just can't do if you're even size in that regard. So, like, Kevon Looney had 23 rebounds in Game 1. He played great, unbelievable, but it wasn't involving Anthony Anthony Davis in actions on defense, so he wasn't having to move around so much on the defensive end, which he was last night. And then offensively, I don't know why he can get a foot in the paint against Looney and can't do it against Draymond. I don't know why the same thing you could say for Embiid. I don't fully understand it, but it's just a pattern I've noticed over the past couple years in the NBA playoffs. Smaller guys, for some reason, maybe it's just pushing on the lower body versus pushing on the middle of the back. I don't know why, but smaller guys tend to be able to push bigs out of the paint.
Here's a pattern that is for sure. Now, 16 times in a row, if the top seed at home loses game one, they win game two. And it's, I think, the fourth time this year, right? Grizzlies did it. Boston did it. Last night, Golden State did it. There's somebody else that has done it.
The Sixers.
The Sixers.
The Celtics, because the Sixers beat the Celtics.
So there's 4 this year, 16 in a row. Now we got 3 games tied at 1-1, and tonight you got Denver and Phoenix, and I really, truly believe this. You are not out of a series till you lose a game at home. And so I really suspect, because I still think Phoenix is a really good team. Now, I don't know about Chris Paul. He's
out.
Out? Is he out for the series?
They said 4 games going into game 2, so presumably, yeah, I would say so. He really looked hurt when he grabbed when they grabbed that hamstring.
Well, he's as old as LeBron. He's 38. So I don't know if Phoenix will win, but I bet you they win tonight.
It's a tough. Nuggets have looked as good as anybody.
Did you, by the way, see there was, I don't know if it was a Phoenix reporter who asked Jokic. He said, "Do you expect Phoenix at home now will come out with a different energy?" And he goes, "No, I think they're going to surrender and give us the win."
I love that.
Then he started laughing. I love that myself. No question about it. Lamar Jackson signed his deal yesterday. Remember how many people were going, "Oh my God, the guy needs an agent. This is why it's taken so long. He's never going to get done. What a mistake he's made. You're talking about 2%. You can afford it." Lamar, did you see what Lamar Jackson got? Have you looked at the contract at all?
38 and 58. What is the 8? That's something 8, right?
No, he got 260, of which the guarantee is like 185 maybe. But here's what he got that no one else has gotten that I've seen. He got, you cannot tag him. He can never be a franchise tag player. And you cannot trade him. He got a no trade, no tag clause. He got $72.5 million bonus just to sign. He's going to make, I believe, $80 million his first year. So that's like, with that bonus, he's getting $150 million up front, $155 million up front. And his annual, if you add it all up and divide it, if he gets all of it, and I can't imagine he wouldn't, he's got no trade. And as long as he's healthy, they got to pay him. So he's going to end up making that 260, which comes out to $52 million a year, which is the highest salary in the NFL. Highest salary in the NFL, unbelievable year with the bonus and the first year payment. No tag, no trade, no agent. Wow. All of that is on Lamar Jackson. In the end, he looks like the brilliant guy.
And was making demands for other players and staff personnel that they need to go higher in order to also keep him happy, too. So not only did he do so well without an agent getting his own contract, he was dictating who else comes on the team this year. So he has a lot of sway in that front office.
Look, he's really smart. You got to be really smart to be an NFL quarterback. There's no doubt in my mind. That old stuff about, he's just a great athlete, you can be a dumb jock. No way. Not a quarterback in the NFL. I don't think you can be a dumb jock to make the NFL in this day and age with the complexity of both offenses and defenses. But he's pretty special because everybody, including myself, thought this whole process is because the guy is so cheap he won't spend 2 or 3% to give to an agent to make sure he's getting what he wants. Well, he ends up with a better deal than guys that have agents. Now, maybe he models some of that. Maybe his lawyer talked with him and helped steer him and did research. But in the end, Lamar Jackson, without an agent, got one of the great deals of all time. Because I can't remember, and we're going to ask Andy Schiffman about this, anybody else getting a no tag, no trade? on top of what he got, that's pretty heavy.
It's rare.
It's pretty darn smart. Good for Lamar Jackson. One last thing, and I meant to say this, but I got to get it out because I used to love the Golden State Warriors until they pulled those shenanigans last year in Memphis. Made me think differently of Steve Kerr and Steph Curry. Certainly, I was never a great. I like Draymond Green as a character, and as a player, but some of the antics I'm tired of. This is why I love them. J-Mo, last night, they had 38 assists, I think, on 45 buckets made.
48, but yeah, basically.
It was 48. Mm-hmm. 38 on 48. Wow. I mean, that's called sharing the ball, playing team ball. Their brand of basketball, really with Mark Jackson it began, but their brand of sharing and shooting and the way they, like it's organized chaos, the way they get the ball back and how quickly they exchange it, it's really beautiful basketball to watch. I mean, it's about as classic as you can possibly get.
Well, you mentioned 38 for the Warriors, but the Lakers also had 27, 65 assists total in the game on only 88 made baskets.
Wow.
So both teams, I believe
that's high-level basketball.
I believe I saw that was the most since like the mid-'80s or something like that. The most assists in a game.
Isn't that incredible?
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that just goes to show you the level that they're at, even though that ends up being a blowout. And for the most part, the Stars didn't play in the fourth quarter. Think about that. You got this level of numbers coming from basically 3 quarters instead of 4. It's outstanding for sure. So we got a busy show, as I mentioned. It's brought to you in part by Miramichi. This would be a good weekend to go if rain holds off. Probably some tee times available because people are afraid of the rain. But now I keep hearing it's going to be really spotty. Really spotty. So if you want to go play a great golf course, 12 minutes north of downtown, Miramichi in Woodstock, not all the way to Millington, please go check it out. Its natural beauty will blow you away, especially on the back 9. And then the challenge, too. But you can sort of temper the challenge because there's 5 different tee boxes, which can make it incredibly difficult or incredibly fun. You can't beat it, and right now there are limited memberships. Go see Cheryl Purdue. Tell her we sent you. And it includes golf, carts. It's a monthly fee, all the practice and all the range balls you could possibly hit. I mean, you can really refine your game if you become a member at Miramichi. And time to stock up for the weekend. That means you need to go see Eddie Connor at the Spirit Shop at Poplar and St. Nick. It's an education if you want. You go in there, you ask any of the staff, but in particular Eddie Connor. He'll tell you the story of everything in there, the valuable stuff, the up-and-coming stuff, the bargains that are out there right now. I'm telling you, if you want to learn about spirits and brand names and what makes something good and what makes something not quite as good, talk to Eddie Connor. You know you're going to get great service. You know you're going to get great prices. You can't beat the location. Right in the heart of East Memphis, right down from Clark Tower. It's that little log cabin you've seen forever. It's the Spirit Shop at Poplar and St. Nick. Back in a minute, we go to Chicago. Our friend Andy Schiffman is standing by. We talk NBA right around the corner.
Be sure to follow us at Sports56 WHBQ on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to watch live video of our shows, stay up to date with station events, and have chances to win prizes. Don't miss out on anything that's going on. Follow us at Sports56 WHBQ.
Hi, everyone. Greg Gaston for FanDuel. Add a little excitement to your sports watching experience by betting on all the action on FanDuel Sportsbook. There's a reason why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Their app is simple to use. They've got great odds on all different betting markets, unique fun bet types like same-game parlay, and exclusive always-on promotions such as enhanced odds boosts on the biggest events to let you get more action out of every game day. And if you win, they even get you your winnings safely in as little as 24 hours. If you've never tried FanDuel Sportsbook, what are you waiting for? Just go to FanDuel.com, use Gas Manager promo code to get in on the action. All in an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Just go to FanDuel.com, again, use Gas Manager promo code to join now or sign into your FanDuel Sportsbook account. Must be 21 or over, present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only. $10 deposit is required. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call Tennessee Redline at 1-800-889-9789.
1 in 4 car batteries is weak and needs to be replaced. Let our professional parts people test your battery for free at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Now, back to Wolo and Friends on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM, presented by Homer Skelton Hyundai. Here once again is the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin.
I meant to mention, happy Cinco de Mayo Day. You going to go get a taco, J-Mo?
And a margarita.
Oh, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that one. I was thinking for lunch I might, just in honor of Cinco de Mayo, go get a taco somewhere or something like that. In the meantime, we go to Chicago. Our friend Andy Schiffman is standing by. Andy Schiffman, how are you?
I'm great. Just in the gym, preparing our guys for the draft. Everything is good here. How about yourself?
So, when you say you're preparing your guys for the draft in the gym, what are you running drill? What are you doing?
Yeah, so we've got a couple guys on our staff who not only are they agents, but they're elite player development guys, former players, former coaches. So we've got our draft class here, and they've been in Chicago for the last month. And we have a structured program for them to prepare for the draft. So they're doing drill work, skill work, physical work, a lot of lifting and conditioning. And then today, on Fridays, is Friday when we go live and we break out. We're going to go out there and play 4-on-4 and 5-on-5. And it's all in preparation for the upcoming pre-draft workouts that NBA teams start doing this time of year and preparation for the draft on June 22nd.
Would I recognize any of the names of the guys in your class?
So we've got Keegan Murray's brother from Iowa, Chris Murray.
Yeah.
I think I think Tiger fans definitely know Marcus Sasser. He's here in the gym with us in Houston.
Really? You got Marcus Sasser. Okay.
Yep. Great kid. Ryan Kalkbrenner, the 7-footer from Creighton.
Wow.
Kobe Brown from Missouri. We've got Keontae Johnson from Kansas State.
Oh, man, that guy should have been a Tiger.
Yep, that's right. We have Larry Nansen. Larry Nansen, one of our clients, his younger brother, Pete Nance, from North Carolina. He's here with us. Terrence Shannon, who's from Illinois. And a few of these guys will, quote-unquote, test the waters and then probably end up going back to school. The deadline to do that and make that decision is May 31st. So they'll be able to get some workouts in and participate in the NBA Combine here in Chicago.
So, who would be predicted to be the highest pick of that group?
Probably Chris Murray, and I think Marcus Sasser will have a good chance to go in the first round.
Yeah.
And I think the big kid from Creighton, Ryan Kalkbrenner, is surprising a lot of us in terms of his ability to shoot the ball, which he didn't really show much at Creighton. So I think he'll have a chance to sneak into the end of the first round.
Huh.
Kobe Brown will have a shot. A lot of teams like Kobe, the strong wing from Missouri. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out. The biggest evaluation period comes up here in a couple of weeks, Dave. The NBA Combine, May 15th here in Chicago. So many of our players will be participating in that. We'll go through that process, and we'll have a really clearer idea, a lot more clarity of where they stand among NBA teams after May 21st after the Combine.
Give me your take on the Dylan Brooks story. Shams breaking the story using the verbiage under any circumstances, Brooks would not be welcome back in Memphis. Usually Shams gets his info from agents, although the agent for Dylan Brooks denied that he leaked the story. What's your take on the whole thing?
Well, first off, I know Shams, and he tends to get a lot of his information from not only agents, but friends and family members of the players directly. And he has this really good tendency to kind of buddy up with those people. And a lot of times those people want to be able to be the lead, right? So they're going to tell him anything and everything. So I know Zach in the front office with the Grizzlies well enough to know they would never speak in absolutes.
Right.
They would never be that crass and that blunt to a player as soon as the season ends. So I don't believe for one second that those words were uttered by Zach to Dylan or Dylan's agent. At the same time, why not leave the door open to whether they revisit extension talks or they are going into free agency this summer with the expectation of finding a free agent out there, whether it's a signing or even via a trade, a player under contract elsewhere to go out there and replace Dylan. But again, if you're Zach in the front office, all options are on the table. It's beginning of May, the season just ended. They would never be that conclusive right now to say under no circumstances are we bringing you back. And I think a lot of people in the media will be so quick to put something out there just so they can say, I was the first to leak this story.
Right.
I called it. And there's multiple people in the NBA world that have a tendency to do that. You'll never see that from Woj, Adrian Wojnarowski, but unfortunately a lot of other people try and kind of compete on his level and just throw anything against the wall and hope it sticks.
I'm not sure that Dylan didn't try to fire himself, though. When he made the statements in the exit interviews that the management didn't use him right, he should have been more of an option. He's not just a 3-and-D guy. And after his coach had talked about how they're going to change and they're not going to talk the talk, just walk the walk, he goes, I'm not changing. I think he was asking out, personally.
Yeah, I think subconsciously, and maybe he didn't realize. Here's the whole thing. Let me back up. And again, I don't represent Dylan, obviously, but if I have a player in his position, you have to be very careful because this whole industry and the marketplace and free agency is so very fragile. There's only 30 jobs out there, and I can promise you 30 teams don't need a player like Dylan. And for the level of money that he's trying to secure, there's not going to be many teams that can afford that. You're going to probably be able to count the number of teams that can afford that with salary cap space on one hand. And to your point, did he do anything towards the end of the season to help himself? No, he did not. Let's just call a spade in terms of objective basketball opinion. Now, he's a good player in a lot of different areas. I think you have to understand what you're getting with Dylan. But, again, you have to know the player's marketplace. And you can't puff your chest out and stand on the table and ask for all this money and then have no floor. What I think you potentially could see Dylan doing this summer, Dave, don't be surprised if, whether it's with Memphis or somewhere else out there, he signs a short-term deal. Maybe it's a 1-year deal or maybe it's a 2-year deal with the player option as the second year to try and revamp his image and put together a great season and then use that short-term deal as leverage to get back into free agency and back into the marketplace next summer when, again, the salary cap is continuing to rise to really help yourself. That is always an option.
So you think there will be a taker on a short-term basis for Dylan Brooks?
I think there could be. It remains to be seen. Look, I don't know. I don't represent Dylan, so I don't know which teams have or have not expressed interest. But he's definitely good enough to warrant a short-term deal from a team that needs his defensive capabilities. And obviously, sometimes three-point shooting is definitely inconsistent. But there's also games where you can go out there and knock in 4 or 5 threes. I think the defensive side is his calling card. And if you use them the right way as a coach and you understand that, knowing maybe that he'll get a little overly competitive out in the media, I think if there's a way to try and harness that, then it could be a great signing for a team.
Replacing him, if he does not come back with the Grizzlies, which I don't think he will be personally, are the sign and trade deals with I guess, draft picks. Is Memphis in a good position with that? Or are they in trouble with cap flexibility in replacing for a 3-and-D guy with to go with the core of Bain, Morant, and Jackson?
Well, more than likely, depending on what they do with some of their own free agents, Memphis will be above the salary cap. They're not going to have salary cap room to go out there and sign a player. What they will have is something called the mid-level exception, which is probably going to come in at around, let's say, $12 million to start. You can sign a player, I believe it's 4 years, on a 4-year deal, up to 4 years. And so the majority of NBA teams every summer, that's the situation they find themselves in, where they have certain exceptions to spend money on using that exception if you're over the salary cap. That's why it's called an exception. It's a soft cap. So if you're a team that is operating over the salary cap, then you have certain mechanisms to spend money and sign players, which are exceptions to the salary cap. So Memphis will more than likely have that, and they can go out and use all of that on one player. If they wanted to replace Dillon as a 3-and-D guy, I think given the marketplace and given the success Memphis has had, I think they'll have some good options at that price. What tends to happen in free agency, a lot of these players will go in thinking they're going to get one thing and they end up signing for another. The asking price always starts relatively higher than what the player a lot of times ends up getting, unless you're just a really, really targeted, coveted player going into free agency. The Grizzlies, you alluded to the sign and trade notion. They could definitely re-sign Dillon under a larger deal and then ship him to another team as part of what's called a sign and trade with an NBA team, and then they could get something back worth more or more expensive than that mid-level exception. But that's very difficult to pull off because there's certain rules in the NBA that if you receive a player back in a sign and trade, which Memphis would, then they are somewhat limited down the road in money they can spend. If they get to that point and keep spending money, they reach a certain point where they have a hard cap at that point. They can't spend more money. So point being, this is all getting in the weeds of the salary cap. They'll have different mechanisms to use. They're going to have a few draft picks. They're not going to have many roster spots. So to your point, the sign and trade may be the way to go.
What kind of a player you think they could get back with the constraints that we're talking about? Could they get an Onanabi? I know they're not going to get Mikal Bridges, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think Anunoby definitely could be in the mix there. I think he's a realistic option. There's a guy like Gary Trent who's out there as a free agent. I think he's going to probably garner a pretty good payday. I believe Josh Hart is another one who's a free agent. I think the Knicks will probably want to try and keep him. Karis LeVert's a free agent. He's probably going to be significantly more expensive. One of our own free agents, a guy named Max Strus with the Heat. We'll see what happens there. So there's a lot of good players on the market that I think can provide the same level of defensive intensity that Dillon provided for the Grizzlies, if not maybe more, remains to be seen, and who are just very consistent perimeter shooters, which would be great for the Grizzlies. I think they made a great move adding Luke Kennard at the trade deadline this past season. And now if you can go out there and add another perimeter-oriented wing that can go out there and do their job to defend their position and be a switchable player on the perimeter and knock down open threes, you're getting that much stronger.
All right. Yesterday, Mike Budenholzer, 2 years removed from the championship, got fired by Milwaukee. Your take on that?
I think there's a lot that we don't know that went on there between the coaching staff and Coach Bud and the players. So I'm not privy to a lot of that information. I think there just has to be more to it because it is a little bit surprising to me, as you said, 2 years removed from the championship. Very successful regular season this year. And if I remember correctly from reading some stories during the first round of the playoffs when the Heat beat Milwaukee, Coach Budenholzer, one of his brothers passed away in a car accident. And that's tragic. The guy kept coaching, and all of a sudden, to think days after this happens, you lose your job and you get fired. So I don't necessarily 100% believe that was just the result of losing in the first round. I think there's other things going on behind the scenes. But look, Milwaukee's making a statement. They're setting the level of expectation they have for that organization with this firing. And it'll be interesting to see what sort of coach they go out and secure, whether it's a Nick Nurse, Ime Udoka. Do they go out there and try and coach one of these young, up-and-coming assistants, kind of like the Grizzlies did with Taylor? Probably not, because at that point in time, the Grizzlies were nowhere near the level that the Bucks are now. But they're going to have a lot of options, and they have a lot of leverage with it being Milwaukee, and who doesn't want to come and coach Giannis and contend for a championship every year?
Well, the one thing that really strikes me is, let's face it, it's a players' league. They got the clout. If Giannis wanted to save Mike Budenholzer, he would have done that. He did not.
Absolutely.
So, it starts with Giannis for sure. But it is amazing to me. Greg and Eli on their show do a thing called 10 in a row, and they did the longest tenured coaches. Obviously, Pops is the longest, Greg Popovich, and then Spoelstra, I think, is number 2. After that, it's unbelievable how short the tenures are, including Taylor Jenkins being, I think, in the top 7 or so. I mean, come on. Why is the tenure of a coach so short these days in the NBA?
I think more and more the league is getting so competitive. We're far removed from the days of the Lakers and the Warriors just completely dominating every regular season. Now, obviously, those two are in a heated matchup right now in the second round. They're both playing very well. I mean, the Warriors last night just picked them apart and shot the ball as good as I've ever seen. And so there's just so much more parity. Now you see a team like Denver, and you see a team like Phoenix, and I mean, even Philadelphia to an extent compared to where they were before Joel Embiid and James Harden and these up-and-coming teams. I think everyone is trying to compete, and so the runway for success is shortened now. I think teams have to make changes and try and see a positive trajectory in their quote-unquote rebuild, and if they don't really see that within 3 or 4 years, it starts with the coach. They're going to swap a coach out, and they're going to move forward, and you saw that with Detroit this year and Dwayne Casey, right? Obviously Toronto, and so it's almost just like a shorter runway for success, and the answer is, well, the short-term answer at least is changing out a head coach, and it's a big cycle, right? So you see this every year, and a lot of these coaches get recycled. You've seen that in Rick Carlisle going from Dallas to Indiana. Nick Nurse is going to get a head job somewhere. I think Ime Udoka is going to get back in the mix. I think you could see James Borrego potentially ending up as a head coach somewhere. And so there's really not a big pool to choose from. You're looking at former head coaches or assistant coaches already having success in the NBA on another team. That's really it.
Yeah, I think, like, if I were Taylor Jenkins, if they go out again in the first round after a good regular season, you would, unless Ja loves him, you would think, okay. Last thing here for you, it's your guy, Santi Aldama, who I just read today is going to be a big part of the Spanish national team. Talk about his growth you only got about a minute.
Sure. Well, I've just been so impressed with Santi. Compared to, if you remember his very first game in Summer League a couple years ago, he flew over from Spain 24 hours before, didn't practice at all with the team, and looked a bit out of sorts his very first game. And I remember seeing all the criticism on Twitter compared to where he is now, and it's all a product of his hard work. The Grizzlies and Taylor and Zach will be the first to tell you he worked so hard and hung around Memphis. He didn't even participate in the national team last summer despite their efforts to get him to, because he wanted to commit himself to being in Memphis around the staff, and it all paid off. I think he took leaps and bounds in his game. He was able to take advantage of the opportunity this year when Jaren was out and stepped up in a big way. And a lot of players continue to make a next huge step in their career when they do go and participate with their respective national teams. So I'm excited for Santi to have this opportunity. It's a great recognition to represent your home country, and it's only going to help him become that much more ready for the start of the season in the fall.
Andy Schiffman, we thank you. We'll do this again next Friday. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dave. Have a good weekend.
That's our agent in Chicago, Andy Schiffman. He's brought to you by the Eflin Insurance Team, where they do it the collaborative way. They love the Tigers, by the way. They put their number to go GUR because of their support of Memphis, 901-386-GUR. That's 4777. Whether you're looking for a perfect auto program or home insurance or life insurance, they'll get to know who you are, what your family's all about, what your budget is, and they protect you. Same thing with commercial insurance. If you got a small to mid-sized business, they'll know your product, they'll know your employees, they'll take your budget, they'll forecast you out, and they'll protect you the right way. That's the Eflin Insurance team. And this portion of the show also brought to you by Conway Services, heating, cooling, plumbing, electric, and the home of the Super Tune-Up. That's a 16-point energy saver Super Tune-Up that absolutely makes your system efficient. It'll end any kind of costly breakdown during the summer, keep your family cool all summer long, and keep you efficient so you save on your energy bill and your system lasts longer. 384-3511 or go to conwayservices.com. Back in a minute, our own Brian Dacus comes your way on what's going on with the Portal and the Tigers. He's next.
Start your day with Sports 56 Mornings with Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy. Weekday mornings from 7 to 10, right here on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
There is so much going on with Memphis Public Golf. It's hard to keep up. Pine Hill is open. Oh, what a masterpiece it is. I know we got to wait a while for Audubon, but my goodness, I drive by there. The lakes are being put into place. It is going to be NCAA championship worthy. The city has invested in golf, and we are all so happy for it. And there's competition, folks. Let me tell you, the Galloway Championship will start on May the 20th. 18 holes, stroke play, toughest and fairest setup they can do. That's for men's, seniors, women's senior, 100 players max. Register right now. A parent-child tournament at Overton Park. Doesn't matter the age. You and your child can get together and play. The 75th anniversary of the OPO will be July the 10th through the 13th, and then the big granddaddy, the Memphis Amateur Championship, July 21st through the 23rd. So much going on with Memphis Public Golf.
Do not. Do so. You do not love Central Barbecue more than me.
I've been talking about Central Barbecue for years. I was the first person to do these spots.
Well, I may be new doing them, but I want to shout from the rooftops just how much I love it.
Okay, smart guy. What are the sides at Central Barbecue?
Easy. Home-cooked pork rinds, home-cooked potato chips, greens, green beans, barbecue beans, onion rings, fries, and potato salad.
Lucky guess. What can you buy by the pound, huh?
Beef brisket, pulled pork, smoked turkey, my favorite, pulled chicken, smoked chicken, and barbecue bologna. Ha!
We're out of time.
I could do this all day.
There are so many ways to buy and sell houses these days. How do you choose? Well, of course, choose the right way with Chet Whitsitt. Chet has over 37 years of experience as both a broker and a sales agent. He's helped lots of people buy and sell homes, and he will help you. It's the right way, and it's that easy. Buying, selling, or referrals, check with Chet at 901-484-5689 and Cry Like Realtors at 901-756-8900. Buying or selling? Check with Chet Whitsitt.
Now, back to Wolo and Friends on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM, presented by Homer Skelton Hyundai. Here once again is the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin.
Weekend almost here. I mentioned Miramichi and golf, and I've run into Sheldon Rosengarten out there, and I'll tell you, he's not lying when he says he's the worst golfer in town. But there's a reason. He never practices. He's too busy working 24/7 to make sure you get the most when you make your move to sell your home. He's got this highly successful strategic marketing program. It involves the 2 Ps, preparation and presentation, and it makes the difference in how much you make. And when you make it, you want to get to that closing table, you call my guy. He's crazy because he'll tell you talk to 2 or 3 guys. He doesn't make sure he's one of them. And if you do, I'm telling you, you'll be sold. They call him Sheldon for a reason. Call 483-0546 or check him out at memphisrelocate.com. Every Friday, we talk to the guy you hear from 3 to 6 every day on Sports Time. That's Brian Dacus. So this has been an interesting week. Tigers lose the point guard from Alabama. They get the one from UCF. He's not quite as high profile as Bradley. So you got Jalen Young, who's, by the way, the half-brother of Jamar Young, who left, which tells you Penny doesn't hold grudges.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, I think you needed a point guard on this team, so getting him is definitely good. And a fairly young guy, redshirt sophomore last year at UCF, so can still kind of develop. I know a lot of people talked about him being a backup when he got here with that's when a lot of people thought Jaden Bradley was going to be your starting point guard. That obviously didn't work out. He's with Arizona now. So, I think it's all up to what happens with Mikey Williams in the point guard position. I think Penny, going into this year, thought that you could put Mikey Williams in with that backcourt as probably a starter with the age that you have with the other guys you've brought in, and that would work.
Well, Caleb Mills
is
going
to be great.
Yeah.
Sure. So I think a lot is still up in the air on if Mikey Williams plays or not next year.
Well, the trial is when? It starts June 29th?
June 29th. That's when the preliminary hearings are. So,
and that basically is it going to go to court or is it not going to go to court?
Yeah.
So if it doesn't go to court, fine.
Perfect.
He comes to Memphis.
Yeah.
If it goes to court, now you're going to wait and probably doesn't play all year.
Yeah, and I think, Coach Hardaway has to make a decision then because you don't want to really get further than that point and still be up in the air on if you're going to have a 5-star prospect on your team or not. And still, there's a lot of back and forth on if J.J. Taylor will be here if Mikey doesn't come. So a lot still in the air with those two. I think we'll hopefully get some clearer understanding on the situation after those preliminary hearings.
Well, today Cinco de Mayo means it's the 5th of May,
That's right.
6 days before that portal closes. Now, you can take people out of the portal,
That's right.
but you'll find out who's in the portal that might be a good player. Yesterday, for instance, still time, Lance Ware, who is the 6'9" kid who played for Andy Borman in AAU, went to Kentucky, didn't work out, had a bad year, let's be honest. He's in the portal. Are there any other guys you're expecting besides him? We'll get your take on him. But who else might end up in the portal by next Thursday that would be worthy of really making this a good team?
Yeah, it's just so hard to kind of predict who's going to jump in, or you've also got guys who are going to take their names out of the NBA draft here in the next couple of weeks. So there will be more guys in there. One center that's in the portal right now, Aziz Bandaogo, probably butchered that name, but over at Utah Valley, 7-foot center.
I watched him. Was it the CBI?
CBI. You watched him in. That's right. Utah Valley, 7-foot center, averaged about 11.5 points per game, 10 rebounds per game. A big center. He's from Senegal. Utah Valley, the past 5 or 6 years, they always have 1 or 2 foreign guys that they get that are very underrated. They kind of develop them. The big one last year was Fardal Zamak, who was the biggest transfer in the portal last year. Definitely top 5 for sure. Went to Texas Tech. He's now at Cal. So I think this could be a name to keep an eye on. Memphis has reached out to him, but also teams like Duke, Kansas, Cincinnati have also reached out to him. So I think it's going to be a difficult process if you get him here. That's a 7-foot center I would love to have on this roster.
Musa Cisse, what's the status of the former Tiger?
I would love to have him back, too. I know Memphis has reached out multiple times to him. There's been conversations there. I think it's just more, does Musa want to come back? I think we all remember how that was. He was a freshman. He was very young. I think a lot was asked from him at the time. And a reclassified guy, too, so extremely young. And then kind of the fan base reaction to that season and then him leaving wasn't the prettiest. So I think it would just be, will he be willing to come back? I think if he wants to come back, I'm sure Coach Hardaway would jump for joy to bring him back.
Why did Jaden Bradley not come to Memphis?
NIL. It was, from everything I've heard, the official visit went extremely well. Everyone you talked to thought he was going to commit around that time and just didn't. About 2 weeks go by, you hear nothing. Arizona's comes into play. NC State comes into play. And I've heard multiple people say that he was asking for a price that Memphis just wasn't willing to give him. And Arizona was willing to give him.
You have any idea what that price was?
I do not. No, I just have been told and have heard around that it was a price that Memphis just wasn't willing to give him.
Malcolm Dandridge, is he coming back?
I don't know. I this is a situation that I hate for Coach Hardaway because he's been so loyal to Malcolm, and Malcolm's been so loyal to Coach Hardaway, but I think you have to make a decision. Last time Coach Hardaway met with the media, they asked him about it. He said, we don't really know. There's no timetable on it. He's trying to get healthy. But at this point, what are we, May 5th? I think you need to have an answer there. One way or the other, either he stays or you cut ties with him. But you need to know that soon because you have one center on the roster right now, and you could very well have 0 centers on the roster in a month.
I'm just very curious if Malco really wants to play.
Yeah, I mean,
he's always told me he wants to get healthy first, and then he'll figure out if he wants to play. I've always thought he doesn't really love the game either, but if you ask him point blank about it, he says, no, I want to be a pro. So we shall see on him. Penny's always pulled it out.
He has.
But I will say this seems to be the toughest of years for him because he's lost a couple of guys, Bradley in particular, that you really thought he was going to get.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, it's not over. I mean, you kind of look back at last year. Keontae Kennedy transferred to Memphis on June 24th. KO transferred to Memphis on May 29th. DeMarie was an August transfer, and they signed Ian Granja in August. So, I mean, a lot can happen. You also have Jamarian Sharp, who's committed to Ole Miss.
Well, that was my next guy because he played for Stansbury at Western Kentucky. And, I don't think he's signed, but he committed to Ole Miss. What is the update on that?
I haven't heard an update from anybody on that, but you would have to assume Rick Stansbury did everything he could last year to keep Jamarian Sharp on that roster and got him back. So I would think that he would do the same at Memphis to try to get Jamarian Sharp on that roster. So I would be surprised if we don't hear anything. But if I'm Chris Beard, if you went out to get him and you really want him on your team, I think it's going to be a tough fight to take anybody from Chris Beard.
Well, they got money.
They do. And they're willing to
and obviously,
buy in.
Penny's got a budget because he could have had Bradley if he paid that price by most accounts. Strange times.
Very.
What do you think of the Stansbury hire? Which, again, shows you no grudges.
Yeah.
Let's not forget, it was Stansbury who stole Acott at the last second from the Tigers last summer.
Yeah.
Late last summer.
I mean, I think Coach Hardaway knows that. He's gone out and gotten former head coaches, and I think he could see what Stansbury did last year, what he's done recruiting wise, getting talent in there, even the talent that he hasn't gotten from the transfer portal. I mean, he has McKnight, the guard they had last year, who's now at Xavier. They've had some really good talent on those Western Kentucky teams, and I think Coach Hardaway could see that. So I thought it was a fantastic hire.
All right, my friend, thank you. I know we'll be listening from 3 to 6. You and Stats, as we always do. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Dave.
Final portion of the show brought to you by Grind City with that new branding they've got. It's a cool logo. Very clean, very Memphis-like, and they're all about Memphis, let's face it. Grind City was this dream of a father and son combination, and the dream came true. They've got this beautiful brewery right on the river. They got all kinds of products for you. I'm crazy about Tiger Tail. I really like Poppy's Pills quite a bit myself. There's the God Hopper, and I think a lot of people love that pale ale. There's the new lager, Thaddeus Amber Lager. There's the Belga, the wheat ale, Belgian style. That's really cool. So many great products. And if you haven't been to the brewery that's right on the river just north of downtown, you are missing it. Go check it out. It's a Grind City kind of weekend. Go check out Memphis's own beer. That'll do it. I'll see you all on Monday. J-Mo, you have a great weekend too. Cinco de Mayo. Go get a margarita. Homer Skelton Hyundai Genesis in Olive Branch has